therapy is a binary experience as it stands right now. That's the only way to really care for yourself mentally. Right. So the question comes back across the table. Is that even the right starting point for somebody? And so, again, that's why I started where I started and said, like, look, like getting in front of a therapist, as you mentioned, is expensive. And not only is it expensive, it's time consuming. There's geographic constraints. There's not enough therapists who look like us to meet the growing demand. So like when we put all this into a bucket, like, quote, going to see a therapist, like everybody says in trend now, is really, really hard for people to do.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Creatives Are Essential podcast, where you guys already know we have therapeutic conversations for the creative mind. Extra emphasis on therapeutic this week. You'll find out what I mean in a second. My name is Christina.
It's your boy, Mark Lee.
Des.
And I'm Joe. Walk on, friends.
What's so funny? Well, as per usual, before we jump in, we got to tell you about our good friends over at MusicBed. Now, if you're not familiar with MusicBed, MusicBed is the perfect place to source music for your creative projects, whatever that looks like. That could be a podcast, that can be a short film, that could be a commercial, and even the music that you hear on the top of this podcast is from musicbed.com. So, we actually like them. We actually use them a lot. Now, because they love us, because we love you guys, we kind of hooked y'all up. So if you head over to musicbed.com right now and sign up for an annual subscription, you'll get your first month free using promo code Creatives Are Essential.
Creatives Are Essential.
Again, if you go over to musicbed.com and sign up for an annual subscription, you'll get your first month free using promo code Creatives Are Essential.
Creatives Are Essential.
All right.
And as you know, we are not into situationships. Here we are into committed relationships.
Committed.
That's right.
Yes.
Tell me it's real.
Tell me it's real.
So if you are not subscribed to our channel, you need to hit that subscribe button right now.
Smash it.
Okay. Is that what they say?
Smash it. Yeah, smash.
You can also follow us on Instagram at Creatives Are Essential. Also,
Creatives Are Essential.
Not this time.
Also visit us on our website, creativesareessential.co, to pick up the most exclusive merch.
Factual. In fact, we have a new drop coming this Friday.
Say word.
Friday the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
I know Mental Health Month is like almost over, but we still got something for y'all, okay? And it doesn't apply to just this month. So this is the new Handle with Care shirt.
Handle.
It's a lifestyle, yes.
Yes.
This is it. So that's dropping Friday, May 27th. So make sure y'all pick that up at creativesareessential.co. All right. So have y'all gone back and listened to the last episode?
What was the last
No,
episode?
that's when we were pouring our hearts out
Right.
and everyone was crying.
I couldn't
and it was
listen
like,
to it. No.
someone actually told me, not to cut you, someone actually told me today, like, hey, I listened to the last podcast and it was so good. I wrote down like my feelings and stuff. And I like today at church.
Oh.
And like she showed me like the list and stuff. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
People
you guys listen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
It was good.
It was good. And I think leaving the podcast that day, I was like, okay, I feel okay. But then watching it back, I was like, I text Christina like, I think I'm at a 4. Like, just listening to it
Like,
back.
I'm at a 9.9. It was heavy.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
And like we were very, very vulnerable. Like so much so, like if you go back and watch, like, I don't know if you could tell, but I was like shaking sitting in this chair.
Yeah.
Like it's something about just going deep.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had my phone in my hand to like, look at some of my answers. And like my hand was shaking. I'm like,
I didn't.
and then my legs started shaking. I'm like, hey, stay still. These are, I'm like, these are your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like, I don't think sometimes we take the time to like really evaluate where we are.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done that until that day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang. And now I got to come and share my feelings with the whole world.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, I think there's a difference between like sharing with us
Right.
than like sharing with
When the
everyone.
cameras are
It's
on.
like, yeah, I'm not doing too well.
I'm at a 3. I crawled
Grandma
here.
calling you like, baby, what's wrong, baby? Like, you okay? But I do want to commend everybody, like, because it takes a lot of courage,
Yeah.
to even like you said, not just amongst ourselves, but in front of an audience, to
Bare your soul.
bear it all and show
Yeah,
people
man.
that like, yo, it's as much as we have fun and we love what we do, like there's a real life side to it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this week we're not going to be all up in our feelings like we were last week, but because it's still May, it's still Mental Health Awareness Month, we still kind of wanted to have that conversation around mental health.
Yeah.
So this time we brought in a special guest who is, former NFL safety, Super Bowl champion, and has started a company called Alkeme Health, which is a digital mental health platform that kind of serves the Black community specifically and creates content that kind of, bridges that gap between therapy and, where you are right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to kick it on over to Ryan. Check out the interview. All right, guys, as we mentioned, we have a very special guest with us today, former NFL safety, Super Bowl champion, and founder and CEO of Alkeme Health. We have Ryan Mundy. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Hey, what's up? Thank you for having me.
Oh, always a pleasure. We're honored. We are honored.
Yeah, we really are. I think
Yes.
I will say you are probably the first Super Bowl champion that we've had on the show.
Mhm.
I believe so. Might be the
there's
first.
a first for everything. There's a first for everything. Hopefully not the last though.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes, yes,
See,
yes.
I like how
Yeah.
I like the way you think.
I like that.
And, and we really want to get to know you a little bit better right now. So before we get into all of our questions and such, we have a very intense game called This or That. Okay. You don't want to think
All right.
too much. We want to get to know who Ryan Mundy is. All right. So I'm just going to go through a list and you just tell us this or that. All right.
All right. That's
All
it.
right.
No context, no nothing, just this or that.
Yeah. And I might ask you, I might throw a Y in there just to see
Okay.
what you come up with. Okay.
All right, cool.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Warm or cold weather?
Warm.
Had to think about
Xbox or PlayStation?
PlayStation.
Why?
Because I have a PlayStation now, and my best memories of quote gaming are on PlayStation, definitely during college.
All right, that sounds wonderful. You're already on the uptick. Good morning or grand rising?
Good morning.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Yeah. Okay. J's or Yeezys?
Yeezys.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Question here, no question. Who wants to wear those heavy ass Jordan did?
as Mark hides his Jordans.
Hey, them things is like bricks, and as I get older, I'm like, man, they are just killing my back. So
Yeah.
I got to go with
I feel
even
you.
Yeezy. I'm on Hokas and all that other stuff now. Serious dad mode.
Oh man, learn something new. All right, here we go. College football or NFL?
That's a good
NFL.
one.
NFL. Okay, now this is a personal one. Okay, Marvel or DC?
Marvel. That's not even a question, is it?
Oh, thank God.
This is how we know you're our people.
Yeah, we can continue the interview.
Yeah, I thought we were
You
just
are-
going to have to wrap it up right
You
here.
are our people. Okay, bonus question: Captain America or Iron Man?
Iron Man.
Ooh, why?
He's a little bit more of a live wire. Captain America, doesn't. Yeah, Iron Man. He's definitely more my speed.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, Captain America is probably the best, but that's neither here nor there.
Can I throw one in there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Fresh Prince or Martin?
Martin.
With confidence.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
question. Can I throw a Y in there?
I just used to feel Martin, I guess, connected a little bit more for me, inner city Detroit, the whole setup and the vibe and the feel aligned a little bit more with my childhood than Will Smith and the Fresh Prince.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes
I'll
sense.
give it to you.
All right. So all of that was just the teaser. But for people who may not be, familiar with you, tell us a little bit about you, yourself, and what it is that you do.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I always try to think about how to answer that question. Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of kicking off, and I'm trying to be better about like breaking my spiel. So I'm a dad. I have 2 girls, 8 and 10. I've been married for 10 years and currently living in Chicago. As always, my past is a big part of who I am and my identity. And so I played 8 years in the NFL and also 24 years in total. I went to Michigan undergrad, did a graduate program at West Virginia. I also have an MBA from the University of Miami, Florida. I'm on a national board of directors for the Alzheimer's Association. Yeah, I'm just trying to break my spiel a little bit, but now back into the spiel. So yeah, I'm the CEO of Alkeme Health. And I have like professional experience, not only in like starting companies from scratch, but also investing in companies as an angel investor. So after my transition, after 8 years in NFL, I got into the world of like quote technology and startups, and didn't know much, but knew that I could get in front of people, and people wanted to talk to me, primarily probably about football, but had to learn how to like navigate those conversations and ultimately, quote, no pun intended, pivot them to get some value out of it and learn and grow. And did that for about 2 years. During like 2016 up until 2018. And in 2018, I started my first company around eco-friendly straws. This was around a time where like plastic was the antichrist, and a paper straw in a drink, it would wither away and like
yes. I hate it.
God,
it's the worst.
And I really love iced coffee, and I was like, man, I can do this. And so just like with any like entrepreneurial startup story, you see a problem, you fix it. And I was at the point in my life where I wanted to like try something new, see if I could take an idea out of my head and make it real. And so we started a company, and we being my co-founder buddy, Phil, we started a company in 2018, the summer of 2018. The name of that company was Swizzle. We had like this little consumer offering, which you could carry around your own stainless steel straw and like your like eco sheet packaging, etc. We ran that for about 2.5 years, and we ultimately sold that company in October 2020 as I prepared to focus my efforts on Alkeme. And at Alkeme, our mission is to become the universal healthcare provider for the Black community, and we are rooting that mission in mental health under a core belief that a healthy life starts with a healthy mind. So hopefully that felt like a little bit all over the place. I tried to break it, but hopefully I brought it home.
Yeah, no, it felt right.
Yeah, that was a great answer.
Yeah.
Spiel
right, cool.
And no spiel. I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought
it all worked.
Yeah.
Change
So
it, switch it up.
yeah. So we watched the episode of The Pivot that just came out, and we were like, "Yo, we got to get this guy, on." So we want to get into Alkeme and everything that you are doing currently, but first we want to go back to like your football days, right? So I was doing some research on you. And I saw that as soon as you got into the NFL, you started thinking about life post NFL, which I thought was very interesting. And you said that Mike Tomlin was actually the one who inspired that, because he told your rookie class that you guys are more than what you do. You know, football is more than what you do. It's not who you are,
Right.
Which is interesting too, because I feel like a lot of people kind of marry the two.
Yeah.
It's hard to separate ourselves from what we do. We're only as good as the last thing that we created or the last game that we played. So how were you able to like successfully separate the two?
Through a lot of trial and error, to be honest with you. Because when Mike Tomlin said that, I was like, yeah, coach, that sounds right. But I had no idea how to put it in practice at all. But just knew that concept resonated with me. And even during like my upbringing, just like I had a natural gravitation to like stuff outside of football. It was really good coming up. Like I even went to art school. So I went to art school from 6th to 8th grade, and it was called Rogers School for the Creative and Performing Arts. And the first half of the day, we would do like English and math, et cetera. And then the second half of the day, I'd be in like art history, visual and computer arts, like making clay, all sorts of stuff. So I always was like developing and curating like interests outside of football, and using that to like kind of help me while I was playing football. So that was, I think, a little bit innate. And once I got to like the highest level, and that being the NFL, the world opened up a little bit as to like, all right, there's opportunities for me to learn about things beyond the game. And one thing that I knew, albeit I had made it, like the, I guess, quote, level of success that I was going to obtain in the NFL was unknown. And that level of success at the time was just defined by money. Right. And so like, I had no idea, you talk about earning potential, but that's just potential. You don't know how things are going to manifest, or even if you're going to have a job next week, next month, next year.
Yeah.
And so with all that in mind, was very thoughtful, one, about making sure that I kept that job, but then two, using that as an opportunity to, get into other things and meet new people, and kind of build a brand around like off-field activities. And so I would do a lot of that. And I would send like cold emails to folks. Why? Because I knew that they would take my email because I said Ryan Mundy, Chicago Bears, or Ryan Mundy, Pittsburgh Steelers, right? So just really innately understanding how to leverage that platform was something that I was like really unique and like, quite frankly, pretty good at doing, all while understanding that, like, look, the NFL is not for long. And even I played 8 years and I retired at the age of 31. That's almost 3 times the average. Most guys stop at 24. And so the only thing the difference is that you just have resources to, quote, figure it out. And so was really thankful for that. But again, always just kind of kept my mind and my eye, and understanding like, how can I leverage football to propel me to the next chapter of life?
So how early did the concept of alchemy come into play? Like, was it, from the beginning, or, once you knew retirement was coming on, that you decided like, oh, hey, I want to get into the mental health space?
I had no idea. Even if you asked me like, let's say like 3 years ago, maybe a little bit before or after that, I would have had no idea that I'd be doing what I'd be doing now. And it's funny how things kind of work out, because I feel like my life events kind of prepared me for this moment. And the catalyst was around, like, my grandmother had a stroke and was unable to come to my wedding 10 years ago. And subsequently from there, like, my family was starting to get hit with a laundry list of chronic disease, illness, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. My grandfather passed away from Alzheimer's and dementia on my birthday in 2017. That's how I ended up like being an advocate for that organization and getting on the board. But my family was just kind of getting hit with a laundry list of like chronic disease and illness. And I was going through what I was going through, transitioning out personally, right? And so my path was like personal and professional. I gave you guys like the rundown of what the professional looked like, but the personal, man, I was struggling, like big time struggling. Yeah. Operating in, quote, imposter syndrome, just trying to figure it out, and being really, really, really insecure about that whole process. Professional exposure, gave me the know-how and the experience to start a business, to understand venture capital, funding, et cetera. And so it was a unique combination of like my personal experience that came to a tipping point between the experiences I was going through, my family was going through, and my professional experience, like kind of, investing in a startup, starting one company, and then really having the understanding and the know-how to say, like, look, I'm gonna go after something that I'm truly passionate about. And that has an opportunity to, pretty much impact the world. And so I would say at that moment came to a head probably around like 2019, late 2019, if you will, heading into 2020, where I was like, you know what, all right, I'm gonna do this, and got started.
Can you break down for us? I don't know if we touched on it, but like, what is alchemy? Like, what's the concept? Why alchemy? Why the name Alchemy?
Yeah, a lot of questions there. I'll start with the name. So the name is derived from the book, The Alchemist, which is about Santiago's journey.
Yeah.
Right. And Santiago goes on this journey all the while to end up right back where he started. And I look at health and well-being as a journey, right? And across, from the day that we're born into the day that we die, we have different need states along that journey. And as we look at things through the lens of Black health and wellness, there's not many people who are caring for us across that entire journey and or spectrum. And so we want to support our community across that entire spectrum of like transformation. The other half of Alchemy is around like the science of turning base metals into gold, right? So as we get older, let's get better, right? And let's transform our mind, transform our bodies in a much like alchemic type process. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and change the name. But even with that, like I mentioned, our mission is to become the universal healthcare provider for the Black community. And that mission was oriented around, again, my personal experience and the experience of my family. And so we had to figure out like, well, what is the right starting point? How do you start on like this journey? There's a lot of holes to plug. And I mentioned that timing was really important because that was like the entry point or the catalyst for people to really start talking and getting real about mental health, particularly around like being sheltered in place, et cetera. And then the summer of 2020 happened and there was just a lot emotionally going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yo, like, this is where we got to start, right? Like, this is what's the biggest need of the community as it stands right now. And what better way to lead a healthy life than with a healthy mind? And so that's when that realization came into play. I was like, damn, I was going through all this stuff. Personally, my family was going through all this stuff, making bad choices around food, et cetera, because they couldn't adhere to regimens, so on and so forth. And I was like, we got to start here. And even with that starting point, it was like, well, you know, the trend at the time was like, let's connect people to clinicians. I was like, okay, if I wanted to do what everybody else is doing, I'll do that. But it didn't seem or feel like the right starting point. And I just kept peeling back the layers and really trying to understand like, what is the core issue? And the core issue is around, through my mind's eye, around just like education and representation, and also just making sure that there's a palatable, frictionless experience to getting onto that on-ramp of caring for yourself. And so at Alkeme, you could think about us as like a content studio. We make video on-demand therapy sessions led by clinical experts that cover specific subject matter topics, and like being Black in the workplace, loving relationships, etc. We also make audio products, mindfulness practices, meditations, etc. And then we combine those two experiences in like a live stream format. And so you can think about us as like a health and wellness content company, and really, working to like resolve a lot of these issues through like education, through a strong brand, through clear communication. And then from there, and also establishing trust. That's the biggest barrier. Mm-hmm. It's like establishing trust up front. And then from there, starting to build out different business lines and methods to deliver care.
Yeah. You said that you guys are like a content studio. So you guys have like a strong emphasis on, design and storytelling. What made you take a more creative approach to mental health care as opposed to what we're commonly used to seeing?
Yeah, I think just naturally being a contrarian by nature. I think that has always been my jam, kind of beating to my own drum. I think that played a big part of it. And then just like my general affinity and exposure to like art and something looking good and feeling good. Like that's really important to me. Yeah. And it's really important for this category because a lot of it looks the same and feels the same. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about stigmas and barriers, like if you don't even come correctly, then that conversation is over.
Right.
So like we had to really take a step back and think about how we show up, what's our language, the Viz ID, the whole nine. Because it matters. Every step of this process matters. And so we're really thoughtful about that.
Yeah, I got to give you your props. I was looking, I don't know if it was on your page or if it was on the Alkeme page, but there was like an interview that you were doing, but you were facing, like it was from like the back of your head.
Yeah.
I thought that was so dope. I'm like, I don't think I've seen that before.
It's different.
Yeah, I was digging it, man. That was dope.
And I love to see it come from like a Black owned company, you know?
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So you mentioned like stigmas and stuff. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I didn't grow up like going to therapy. And actually even now.
Yeah, that's for the crazy people.
Even now, therapy is expensive, if we're honest about it. So that keeps a lot of people out. So like, how do you introduce the concept of therapy to someone who just feels like it's not for them, or it's not even possible or accessible to them?
Yeah, my response would be like, therapy is a binary experience as it stands right now. That's the only way to really care for yourself mentally, right? So the question comes back across the table, is that even the right starting point for somebody? And so again, that's why I started where I started and said, like, look, getting in front of a therapist, as you mentioned, is expensive. And not only is it expensive, it's time consuming. There's geographic constraints. There's not enough therapists who look like us to meet the growing demand. So like when we put all this into a bucket, like, quote, going to see a therapist, like everybody says in trend now, is really, really hard for people to do. Yeah. In addition to like stigma, so on and so forth. And so like, how do you, like, again, what's the right starting point, right? Like, that's why we started with content. Like, you could check this piece of content out at 2 a.m. while you laying in your bed, 1 p.m. on your lunch break, or sometime in between. And it's all oriented around accessibility. And I think that's what's been lacking a lot in just the category in general, is just around like a true understanding of like how to get people comfortable with this topic and take, furthermore, take conversations and translate them into like meaningful progress and steps. And so like the whole system and spectrum, I think just needs a total revamp, because again, going to see a therapist is a very, very binary proposition that has a ton of access barriers that prevent people from getting the help that they need.
Yeah. I think going to therapy alone has a stigma attached to it. Yeah. But in the Black community, it's like a big no-no. It's like you don't share your feelings. You don't do any of that. Why do you think that in the Black community is such a turnoff to even talk therapy?
I think just pivoting the question a little bit, it's around like sharing your feelings. And I think that's a really, really that prevents people from going to see a therapist or talking about what they're going through. And so in the historical context around like showing your feelings, or why wouldn't one would not do that, is out of fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being shunned, fear of being harmed, or that information being used against you. I mean, there's a long list of reasons why one would not feel comfortable about sharing their feelings. And so I think that stops us big time from like, taking those steps, or even just understanding the true value of what talking to somebody can do for you.
Yeah, we all come from, like I said, from generations where you didn't go to therapy. But why do you think that therapy, or even mental health and mental health awareness month, is such a priority now as opposed to 5-10 years ago? Because you see it everywhere. Mental health.
Yeah, you do. You see it everywhere. And I'm going to ask y'all a question based off of that, because I'm really curious about the but the why is, I think there's no shortage of things happening in our world right now. And it's been like that for like the past almost 2.5 going on 3 years. Like, we just see stuff happening in the headlines now, and it's just like, oh, okay, another thing, right? Like,
right.
We've had a mass shooting in Buffalo, UFO reports.
I missed that one.
No, I didn't see that.
There's just so much going on. It's like, man, what's happening?
Yeah.
Really, like, what's happening? And I think people are really struggling to make sense of just constantly being jabbed in the face with like boom, 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 boom.
Bad news.
It keeps happening. And it doesn't, and it feels like there's no end in sight. And so I really think that because of all that, people are now really tuning in and understanding the importance of like mental health and mental well-being.
Well, I know one thing that we talk about a lot amongst ourselves is social media. Yeah. And the effects of social media, right? Social media has a lot of pros that we don't really talk about a lot, like, connecting with each other and being able to, put ourselves out there and our work out there and all that stuff. And even like getting you on the podcast today, like I sent you a DM, you responded, but also there are the obvious cons, like people developing a false sense of reality and comparison and all that. But a lot of people, well, and especially in the creative industry and entrepreneurs, like you don't really have the opportunity to disconnect from social media, you know, the way you would want to, because a lot of it now is a part of our career, you know? So like, you know, you can't, as an entrepreneur, you know, like with Alkeme, I'm sure a lot of the ways people find you guys is through social media. Yeah. So how do you develop a healthy relationship, you know, with social media when it's something that is a part of your life and your career?
What they say, you got to guard your grill, something like that. Or mind your mental, right? Like mind your mind. And that's actually a phrase that we use, mind your mind. But basically in that context, it's around like, you know, you got to be watchful about like your intake, just like you watch or may watch what you are putting into your mouth from a food standpoint, like what goes in, what you take in visually and sonically, et cetera, impacts you as well. And social is no different, right? And so I just try to maintain a strong filter on the content that I see. And, you know, it kind of sucks because even by doing that, then, you know, the algorithm is still going to make sure that I see things that may not be in line with what I actually want to see. And,
right.
You know, that's a whole nother podcast story in itself. Yeah, I just try to make sure that, you know, I'm filtering appropriately. And then also, you know, just like doing what I need to do on there and then getting off. Like I try not to do the scroll, like just the mindless scroll.
It's hard.
Really, yeah.
Especially on TikTok.
So like I'm on TikTok, but you know, I'm like one of those older millennials. It's like, how do you work
listen, TikTok? You're missing out. TikTok is where it's
You are missing out on a lot, but don't go there. We're not going to encourage you to
I'm going to encourage you. TikTok is great.
Like, look at some of the numbers. Like TikTok is competing on like Google search level category. I just saw a graphic that said like there was 9 trillion hours of content consumed on Netflix, and TikTok had like 22 trillion or something like that.
It's
like,
I believe it. They'll get you.
No, seriously,
Yes.
like legit. I caught myself a few times. I'm like, it's been hours,
yes.
and I didn't even realize it.
You look at your battery.
It's been hours.
Like, what just
that must
happened?
said 20%. You'd be like, 10%.
Yes.
So I don't know. I might miss that TikTok boat. I don't know. I have an account, but again, I haven't taken that big plunge just yet.
It's waiting for you.
I think so. I think it's doing just fine without me, though. You know, we'll see how that goes.
So I do have a question. Kind of going back, we as a society, we put such an emphasis on physical fitness. You know, you grow up, you go through school, right? And it's like, oh, you got to take PE, math.
Yeah.
All these classes. What, and this could be to you, Ryan, or to any one of you guys, like, what would it look like for the school system to introduce mental fitness or mental health as a course, you know, from an early age to kind of teach, you know, the youth how to navigate life?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Amazing question. I don't have like a specific answer, but I do think it's a very interesting opportunity. You know, you start to see like, I saw clips and news stories around kids meditating in class. I think maybe the opportunity is just to teach young people like self-care habits and give them a variety of self-care habits, because everything don't work for everybody.
Right.
But really just giving them the space and agency amongst those self-care habits to say like, look, you know, this is how you meditate, or because a lot of people say, I don't even know how to do that, or I don't know it's working, et cetera. Right. And so like really just kind of teaching fundamental skills and building blocks to help kids figure how to take care of themselves out, I think would be really, really interesting.
Yeah, because nap time was always amazing.
Facts.
Yeah.
Like take a nap. I schedule breaks. I literally, you look at my calendar, you see 15-minute breaks. Schedule your break. But yeah, nap times, whatever you need to do for yourself, naps included, knock it out.
Yeah.
I'm a nap champion.
Oh yeah. Naps or sleeps?
It's not. It's naps or hibernations.
You take slumbers.
It's a sleep.
Yeah.
Still trying to get on the wave. I'm not really good at napping. I feel like I have serious FOMO. So I feel like if I take a nap, I'm gonna miss out on everything that could ever happen. But at this point, I'm really tired, so now I have to take naps. I tried to take one before, but it didn't work out.
You woke up the next day.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about mental health and art. You know, like I think if you listen to music, I feel like a lot of like, especially in hip hop, like a lot of rappers and stuff, I think some of the stuff that they're talking about, I'm like, are you depressed?
Yeah.
You know, like.
And they would say yes.
Maybe. But at the same time, some people will argue that maybe it's not good for their work, you know, to be in a good headspace all the time. For example, Mary J. Blige, right? Mm-hmm. We've heard Happy Mary, right? Mm-hmm. And we've heard Sad Mary. And Sad Mary hits on like a whole different level.
Wait, give me like a Sad Mary song.
Not gonna cry.
Too long, and I can't breathe without you. Sorry.
Well, that one too.
And I can't be without you, baby. That one?
Not gonna cry. That's mine.
How does that one go?
And what's a Happy Mary song?
We don't know them. That's the point. That's my point.
I couldn't tell you one.
Seriously. So like
Hateration, Holleration song.
But did we like that one though? Did we?
This dancer.
And I remember
dancing.
I really like Everything by her though too. I think that's a happy song.
Everything?
Yeah.
Haven't heard it.
You are my. You got me out here singing.
Yeah, come on. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. But it don't hit you the same way.
That's cool.
You know? Like Not Gonna Cry, you could be having a great day and you put Not Gonna Cry on and like you're mad at somebody. Yeah. You're finding someone to be mad at. It takes you there.
Yeah, you break up with the person in your head. Like.
Right. You ain't even got nobody. You single as a Pringle, you know? So like a lot of people, they don't seek out, you know, to be in a good headspace, good mental health. Mm-hmm. So what's your take on that? Like, do you feel like, well, I don't even know what the question is that I'm asking, but like some people are not trying to be mentally healthy. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's like comfort in your sorrow or depression?
It's default.
Yeah, I think my coach used to have a saying, fellowship of the miserable. In other words, like misery loves company, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I've heard another term around like sad rap.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah. You know, I think there's a line, maybe not to be drawn, but just to be understood around like using art as a form of expression that can be, you know, healing to the artist and also to other people. But sometimes like it doesn't always goes a little bit overboard, you know what I mean? And I think, and that varies upon individual, but the general theme around just like, because it can feel a little bit predatory at times where people are just trying to monetize sadness or monetize like these serious conditions, that 1000% is not okay.
Yeah, I think there's been an evolution. Like back in the 90s, it was, and still, but to a certain level, glorifying, you know, gang activity and violence. Now it's glorifying depression.
Yeah, and sadness. Yeah. I'm so sad. I want to die.
Yeah,
all the things. Yeah. I mean, I will say that because I do a lot of work with like high school, middle school students, and like it seems like way more than before that there is a ownership when it comes to sadness and depression and like things are bad and you don't get it. Life is terrible, and this is where I'm gonna stay and live. Like I've set my house up here. And it's like when you try to share about like, hey, there's more. Like, and you don't have to stay in this place. It's like, no, this is my home. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And I think for me, that's one of the hard spaces to try and convince people that you don't have to stay there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because I think back to when I was a kid, like I didn't know what a lot of this stuff was. And that could be argued for better or for worse. But I think generally now that teenagers, kids, young adults have access to a whole bunch of information and content. And sometimes that's for better, sometimes that's for worse.
Right.
But it is real. And I think that can be evaluated independently because I think there's definitely something to be said for that. Because I could as I sit here and think back, I'm like, I didn't necessarily know or have the language or the understanding of what these things were. But now, you hear like 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds talking about it. And the question can be asked, well, do you know or have like the real context of what that means? Or is that you just repeating something that you heard?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in itself, right?
Right.
Which is, it's really, really, it's complicated. Yeah, multifaceted for sure.
So do you feel like some of the conversations that we've been having with mental health has helped or hurt in certain areas, especially when it comes to a younger generation coming up?
I think conversations definitely help, but too much conversation with no action will hurt.
Yeah.
You see a ton of conversations happening, a ton. But it's really hard to like measure follow up or what's like the tangible takeaway or the step that you can do now that you've heard this conversation. I think people really like having the conversation. It makes them feel good in the moment, but then they get back into their respective corners. And it's like, man, I still don't know what to do about this. Like I heard it, received it, but I don't know what to do. And so, I think too many conversations with not enough follow-up or action steps or places to go is generally bad. And that's something that I'm always reminding my team about. Like, we got to let people know who we are. We got to let people know what we have to offer. I got to get out, do conversations, et cetera. But it's about the work. It's about like, all right, based off of that conversation, can we help somebody, right? Can we provide a resource? What did we learn about our community or our audience that will help us continue to help and serve? Because as I sit here, like good help is really, really hard to find.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, we know we got to let you go. But before we do, tell people where they can connect with you, connect with Alkeme.
Yeah. So on social media, my personal handles, all of them are Ryan G. Mundy, at Ryan G. Mundy. I'm not hiding. I'm using my government name out there.
That's Mundy. I thought they were saying Monday when they were saying your name.
Like backstory on that. Like, they used to always say Monday, and I'm like, there's no A in my last name. That's always been like a little thing that specifically like TV announcers who you think would kind of get familiar with pronunciation.
Right.
That's going to be good at it. We'll mess it up every time. But Ryan G. Mundy on all social media handles. And then from an Alkeme business perspective, Alkeme Health on all social media handles. And our website is www.alkemehealth.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming through, kicking it with us and having the conversation.
Appreciate
you.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Hey, next time, bring the ring, okay?
My dad. I don't even have it.
Oh, you gave it to your dad, you said?
Oh, that's nice of you.
Yes. I gave it to my dad. I was like, next
time, bring your dad.
Hey, my dad would happily come on here for sure.
Well, we're open to all parties.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Ryan. We appreciate it.
All right, cool. Thank y'all.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I know we did. Shout out to Ryan Mundy for coming through, kicking it with us, having that conversation. And make sure you follow him and Alkeme Health on Instagram. Yeah. And don't forget, it is still Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes, it is.
We have this shirt coming out.
Yep.
When this drops, it'll be tomorrow, May 27th. Handle with care.
Yeah. Pull up.
Pick it up. We don't got a bunch of them now. Yeah. And when they sell out, they sell out. Don't DM me. Mm-hmm. Oh, don't text me.
I wanted the shirt.
Don't ask us in person.
Don't do that either. Okay. Once it's out, it's out. So make sure you check that out at creativesareessential.co. And again, if you're not following us on Instagram, go ahead and do that at creativesareessential. All right. So we're going to check you guys on the next one. My name is Christina.
It's your boy, Mark Lee.
Des.
I'm Joe. Later, friends.
Peace. Or creativesareessential.net. Gov.
Org.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm good.